Good morning, everybody. Welcome to The Sweat. We have got a big show for you today, including our picks for the World Cup tomorrow, picks for the 8-game NBA slate. We got a 10-game slate in the NHL. But first, let's get to everything that happened yesterday in the NFL. I'm your host, Jesse Cofield, by the way. It is NFL hangover time with DraftKings contributor Pierce Dietrich and Jeff Ulrich. Fellas, let's start in the NFC East, okay? Eagles squeak out a win. All right, like a win's a win. But after their first loss to Washington, barely getting by Indy, we're talking by 1 point here, are the Eagles showing their weaknesses? And Pierce, just looking at the division as a whole, would you feel better about the Giants had they stayed within a game of Philly and beat the Lions?
It's possible you'd feel better about the Giants, but we all know the Giants aren't for real. It's a great story. It's awesome. Probably kicking themselves a little bit for not beating Detroit, but give Detroit some respect here. Detroit's a decent team. They were a decent team last year. They always covered spreads. They just never could get the games to go their way. And kind of the opposite's been the Giants this season. They're a lot like Detroit last year, that the games just always seem to go their way, except for yesterday. The Giants just don't have the talent. They have a well-coached team, great coaches, players that execute, but the talent's just not there. They don't have any receivers. They rely a lot on Barkley. If he can't get anything going, then it's a tough game for them. As far as Philly, yeah, they've got to improve the rush defense, and they are definitely missing Dallas Goedert. So there are some concerns. They can figure it out. They can fix it. But they're no longer this unbeatable team, and there will be some concerns in the playoffs with Philly if they can't find an alternative to Dallas Goedert and if they can't stop the run.
Jeff, do you think that the Eagles can figure it out? And then also, do you agree with Pierce that the Giants are just not for real?
Yeah, let's start with the Giants. I mean, I'm even more on board than Pierce is here with the Giants being frauds. I think the Giants are going to miss the playoffs. I think that was a devastating loss. They lost 2 linemen in that game. They lost another receiver. They have nothing for wide receiver now. Wan'Dale Robinson out. They face the Cowboys next week, and Daniel Jones may not survive the game. They're going up against the most devastating pass rush in the NFL there in Dallas. And then you look at their schedule. They play the Eagles twice, the Commanders twice, Dallas, the Vikings. Their easiest game is against the Colts, who, again, look like they're becoming a competent NFL team. This is all with these injuries piling up. The Giants may not win a game the rest of the season. That's not even a hot take. They're going to be the underdog here in almost every game. This is tough sledding. You can get the Giants to miss the playoffs plus money right now. I think it's plus 115 on the DraftKings Sportsbook. It's just a bad circumstance for New York. They've been winning games, close games. I think that's all going to shift out of their favor right now. As far as the Eagles go, Pierce is right. The rush defense not look good, but you know what? Everyone's making jokes on social media. That was a big win for that team. Yeah, it's tough to win in the NFL. They lost Dallas Goedert. That's a big part of their play action scheme. Their rush defense wasn't getting them a huge number of stops. Jalen Hurts comes in, performs a game-winning drive on the road. That's a really big win for that team. And it sounds crazy. I know they only had 1 loss on the year, but that keeps the momentum going. It gives them more breathing room to get healthy down the stretch. Yeah, I think that, between the Eagles and Cowboys right now, you could make an argument the Cowboys are the better team. But Jalen Hurts is that X factor, man. And if this team definitely has a ton of belief in him. So Eagles need to improve a little bit down the stretch, but they should. Goddard will get healthy. It's the Giants you got big concerns about.
All right, Cowboys with the win over the Vikings. And by win, I do mean blowout, an absolute blowout. There's still 2 games behind the Eagles, but should Philly be looking over their shoulder at Dallas, Jeff?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think the Dallas Cowboys right now, what you're seeing is just a team that's starting to realize that they're pretty good. And they should be blowing out some of these weaker teams. They're top 10 in rush DVOA and pass DVOA. Their offense with Dak Prescott has looked miles better. Dak is playing good the last 3 weeks. You've got Tony Pollard finally coming into his own and getting usage that everyone on the sidelines thinks that he should be getting it. And they're scheming CeeDee Lamb open now on these play action. Everything is clicking right now for the Cowboys, and it really couldn't come at a better time as we head into December. Again, they've got a cake matchup here the next week at the Giants without 2 of their starting linemen. Good luck with that. They got the Texans and the Jags. They got a meeting with the Eagles coming up in December. It's kind of lucky for Dallas that they're not getting them a little bit earlier in December when Goddard wouldn't have been back. But that'll really be interesting. I think the Cowboys are a dominant team down the stretch here. I think that you can make an argument and say that they're the best team in the NFC right now. with the way the Eagles have looked the last couple of weeks. So I'm very bullish on the Cowboys right now. I think their coach is always going to be a factor in them winning games and how far they can take them. But in terms of just how their team is set up right now, I think there's a very good argument they're the best in the NFC.
Yeah, Pierce, NFC East and AFC East, for that matter, boast all 8 teams with 6+ wins. So everybody's kind of looking over their shoulder, right?
Well, I wouldn't say in the AFC East. I think that's a bit of a mirage. Those teams are going to fall off pretty quickly. And if we look at the NFC East, I would not be surprised to say that the Cowboys by the end of the season are in first place. Like Jeff mentioned, it's not easy to win games. Eagles can easily drop a game going down the stretch, and then they've got a head-to-head matchup at Dallas. I believe it's on Christmas Eve. That game, I clearly am going to favor and take the Cowboys. We shouldn't be surprised that this team's playing well. They were winning with Cooper Rush at quarterback. The line's playing well. They've got 2 running backs that they can divide the workload down the stretch with, which is going to really pay dividends come playoffs. Their wide receiver core is getting healthy. It is improving. Everyone knows they have a great pass rush, but you combine that with the way that Diggs is playing at cornerbacks. You've got a cornerback that can possibly shut down a number 1 wide receiver, which, hey, where was Justin Jefferson yesterday? Didn't see much of him. Diggs played an excellent game. So if you take away a main option from one of these wide receivers in the playoffs, and a quarterback has to deal with a pass rush and is having to dump down to secondary and tertiary options, it's just not going to move the chains. Dallas really should be considered right now the number 1 favorite in the NFC.
All right, Bills get the 8-point win over the Browns in Detroit. Much better game for fantasy than it would have been in Buffalo, right, with like 5 feet of snow on the ground. But when it comes to wins and losses, like, are we entering a slippery slope here for relocating games? It was probably the right call to move the game, unless, of course, you ask Jeff, who's Canadian, and is like, what, that's just a Saturday. But the Browns' run game certainly could have had an advantage in Buffalo. So, Pierce, with the AFC East so tight right now, even though you think that's a mirage, should Dolphins fans be a little miffed that the Bills were able to move the game?
I get a feeling that this was secretly written by a Patriots fan, not necessarily a Dolphins fan being upset. This is not a slippery slope. If you had that game in Buffalo, 50,000 people would have descended upon Buffalo in 6 feet of snow. Someone probably would have frozen to death. There would have been multiple car wrecks, people trying to drive to this game. It wasn't really, that was it. You were just trying to take care of people because people don't know any better. And even if you locked them out of the stadium, they would have still congregated in the parking lot and threw each other through folding tables. You just couldn't have it happen. It's not a slippery slope at all. Anytime that you have to protect the fans, you got to protect the fans. And I don't want to hear about it from Miami. Miami's the same team that built their stadium so that the shade is on their sideline. They've got a 70-degree sideline while their opponents are sitting there in 100 to 110-degree sweltering heat. Enough. It was the right call.
Jeff, I know you're Canadian. What is your take on this?
It's so cute that Pierce thinks someone would have died because there was some snow on the ground. We had an outdoor hockey game up here in good old Edmonton like 20 years ago that was played in like minus 10 Fahrenheit weather. So yeah, everyone would have been fine. I think
we're talking
that the
about
fact
Americans.
I think there was so much snow on the ground that yeah, they probably needed to move it. It's fine, whatever. But you know, the thing is, the Bills it did play to the Bills' advantage. I don't think that there's any question that this played to the Bills' advantage. I know they ended up running the ball, and it was kind of a weird game that they ended up controlling the ball on the ground versus, you know, it was Jacoby Brissett going off for 300 yards. And I'd be a little bit worried if I was a Bills fan about the way their secondary is now starting to look. But, you know, letting Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones go for 3 touchdowns. But, again, this played to their favor. There's no question. The Bills are like a dome team in hiding. I mean, this is a team that has a high offense, a guy who wants to chuck the ball downfield with 2 elite wide receivers on the outside. So I think it helped them. But you know what? Pierce is right. Like, I mean, it doesn't matter. It's still an NFL game. Like, it's still, you know, a team on team. The Dolphins always have an advantage. We always talk about the Miami advantage when teams go down there because of the heat, the Miami nightlife, like whatever. Everyone's got some kind of advantage when you're at home or in a certain spot. So it's not that big a deal. I think that Miami needs to just focus on what they're doing well rather than what the Bills are doing and just hope that this Bills defense doesn't get it figured out soon. Because if they do, the Bills should still win this division easily.
I really like Pierce's caveat when he was like, we're talking about Americans here, all right? Like, there's a big difference, Jeff, okay? All right, but the big story of Week 11 is special teams return touchdowns. So Cordarrelle Patterson breaks the all-time record for kickoff return touchdowns. Marcus Jones wins it for the Patriots against the Jets on a last-second punt. Now, the NFL has been phasing kicking out of the game. So the question is, do we need more returns in fantasy in the NFL, Jeff?
Yeah, man. I mean, I've always been for that. I mean, look, the NFL has basically just turned into this quarterback star-studded league because of the fact that they've taken out some of the variance involved with special teams. I mean, you saw how like a single play on special teams can just change the face of the game. And I think that teams that are coached well on special teams deserve to get a little bit more chance to show it. I mean, I think that like you should move the kickoff back so we get more kick returns. So a player like Cordell Patterson, who you just can't say enough superlatives about, just in terms of what an athlete he is, has more chance to show it, has more chance to be a factor for his team. Same with Marcus, the Patriots kick returner as well. So yeah, I wish we could somehow get the kick game more involved here. There's more rules where teams can just build around that special teams. Again, we even saw it last year in the playoffs. Team with a good special teams in San Francisco and one with Green Bay. It ended up costing them a Super Bowl run because they couldn't block for a punt. So yeah, special teams. I'd like to see them get a little bit more juice here. I mean, I think that kick return is one of the most exciting plays in football, quite frankly, and we should get a little bit more chance to see it. I know a lot of this player safety involved, and I get that, but man, it's such an integral part of the game, or it used to be anyways. I'd like to see more of it.
Pierce, are you on the same page?
I am. I also agree it's a big player safety issue, and the NFL has been erring on the side of protecting the players for quite some time. You go back 10, 20, or even 30 years ago, this game's just not quite the same. I don't like that we don't have kick returns, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I like. The fans are still tuning in. And so if the NFL is going to make money and protect players, that's the direction that they're going to go. In a perfect world, they can make money, protect players, and have kick returns as well. But perfect is the enemy of good. Sometimes you just cannot fulfill every hope, wish, and dream. So, it's just one of the sacrifices that we have to make, especially with all the concussions happening and this thing's getting a little out of control. I don't blame the NFL for getting rid of it. But on the other side, when we do get a kick return for a touchdown, it's extra special.
All right, over in the AFC North, Bengals and Ravens both getting a win. Ravens only getting 13 points against the Panthers. So, Pierce, any worry about the Ravens offense as the Bengals get going here? Bengals have only scored fewer than 27 in 2 games since week 3, both losses.
Yeah, that definitely needs to be some worry on the Ravens side, and there should have been worry really entering the season. They came into this season with a wide receiver core that was unproven, and those unproven receivers haven't been healthy. They haven't played well together. They haven't gelled. I mean, I guess you got Demarcus Robinson catching 9 catches yesterday. I'd like to see him carry that on through multiple games, but really it's just Lamar and Mark Andrews, and we witnessed last year that Lamar and Mark Andrews may be great in fantasy, but that's not going to carry your team to the playoffs. They need some running backs, and their running backs are injured again. The offense in Baltimore, I mean, the hope is that if people get healthy, then things will magically turn on. But right now they're not healthy, and you just can't see that running back core or that receiver core going very far, or at least keeping up with the Bengals. I mean, the Bengals are missing Jamar Chase, and it took them a couple weeks to get it back dialed in, but they're looking good again. Higgins, Mixon, Boyd, even P. Ryan is looking good. If the offensive line for Cincinnati can slowly develop over the next couple weeks and just become an average unit, then this is going to be a scary team in the playoffs.
Jeff, are you worried about this Ravens offense? You think they can keep up with the Bengals?
I mean, no. I mean, like the Ravens may be good enough to like grab a win over the Bengals if they meet in the playoffs or something like that, or even like their week, whatever it is now, 18. I can't remember where we go, but week 18 matchup. But the Ravens, it's going to be the same old story. They don't have what it's going to take to knock off an elite team, to knock off a Kansas City, a Buffalo. I don't even know if they're going to get by Miami. Like this has been the Achilles heel of this team. Even when they were dominating in the regular season and their offense was at full strength, the passing game is just too limited. Like, and Mark Andrews is popping up. That's great. But like, is he going to be able to carry you on his own against when you have to come back against Kansas City? Because the defense is good, but like, let's not give it too much credit. It stopped the Carolina Panthers. Like, that's it. So their secondary is still very gettable, in my opinion. The rush defense is certainly stiffened up, but like they're not good at covering the middle of the field, tight ends either. So yeah, the Ravens are what they are. They're a great regular season team because they have Lamar. They have a rush heavy offense that moves the ball. But like when you ask them to get in a catch-up scenario, this team is it's kind of dead in the water. And we've seen that so many times in the playoffs. So much more bullish on the Bengals. I think Pierce is right. I honestly think the Bengals may be gearing up for another like kind of surprising run here. They're looking really good. Joe Burrow, I know he's throwing picks against the Steelers, but like that's the only team he throws picks against. So look out for the Bengals here coming through because I would not be shocked if they knocked off another big team in the playoffs this year.
All right, speaking of the Ravens, DraftKings is set to go live in Maryland. So for our friends in Maryland, download and sign up for DraftKings today, and you'll receive $200 in free bets after registering. Woo! Make sure you get on that.
You can bet the Ravens, to lose in the playoffs or something.
Yeah!
You don't want to do that. You want to bet on the Ravens if you're in Maryland. Come on, I'm just kidding.
That's the spirit, Jeff. Now let's get on to tonight's game in Mexico City. It's the 49ers and Cardinals. So exciting. Tail of the tape here. How about we look at how they've been doing so far? Pretty similar. Looking pretty similar here, except for their over-under record. Cardinals 5-5. 49ers 3-6-0. But points per game, pretty much the same here. In games in Mexico City, average 43 total points. That has been through 3 games. So let's talk about how you are going to build these lineups. For your captain spot, Jeff, are you just going to eat the chalk and put Christian McCaffrey in here?
I think McCaffrey is an okay fade in the captain spot tonight. I mean, he's obviously splitting snaps now with Elijah Mitchell. A little bit concerning that his snap rate and usage went down in game 2 there. I think Mitchell is still a player that looks really good when he's on the field. He's going to get touches because of that. I like going down to Rondale Moore, and I said this yesterday, but and you know what? If Kyler Murray's not going to play, that's fine. 13 targets with Case Keenum in his last game. Rondale Moore, no Marquise Brown either tonight, it looks like, which is really good. DeAndre Hopkins certainly going to eat up some targets, but Moore is that slot guy that Keenum's just going to try and target relentlessly over the middle. You look at what San Francisco does not do well. They have not covered wide receivers well. 3rd most fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position over the last 4 weeks. Rondale Moore is just a good after-the-catch receiver. I think that, this is a spot where lots of garbage time. If Moore breaks one off quick as well, he just may get there on volume, and he's only 9,900. With the way San Francisco's offense is spread out, I think Moore has a shot here at being the highest fantasy producer of the night. So,
all right, Pierce, who do you like to put in your captain spot?
Jimmy Garoppolo. Hear me out. I knew we were going to get groans, and that's good. That means we're going to get lower ownership. No one likes playing Jimmy Garoppolo. There's just too many weapons, though, in San Francisco, and that's bad for all of the DFS targets on that side of the ball, except for Jimmy Garoppolo. He could benefit. Now, there is a scenario where there's a bunch of rushing touchdowns, and then Jimmy is dead in the water, although he did get a rushing touchdown last week. But there is a real possibility that with all these different weapons, that the ball gets distributed to everybody. That goes to Kittle, that goes to Ayuk, to Debo, to CMC, to Elijah Mitchell. And in that case, point per dollar wise, none of these guys really go off. And there is Garoppolo with a decent price tag who ends up being the most efficient play at cap. I think he absolutely has to be in one of your utility spots no matter what. The only way you could get away from them is if you script this thing as a heavy run game. But like Jeff said, I think you are fine to fade C-Mac in this spot. I don't think he's going to get as much of a workload. We saw what Eli Mitchell did last week. I think Jimmy G is an interesting play and will definitely benefit from all the different weapons.
Yeah, and Colt McCoy is going to start for the 2nd consecutive week in this game. Kyler Murray going to miss that game with a hamstring injury. How about a value play that you're going to be going with here, Pierce? What do we think?
Well, I'll take Jeff's captain, Rondale Moore. As he mentioned, a lot of targets last week from Colt McCoy. Colt McCoy is going to start again, I believe. I'm pretty sure. I think that's what you just said. So with Colt there, they're going to pass. The game script says that they're going to be, down 10? I think the line just keeps moving. I don't know where it is right now, but it looks very likely that in the second half, as much as the Cardinals like to run the ball, they're probably going to be playing from behind. They're probably going to be passing the ball. Colt McCoy looked halfway decent last week. He did like targeting Rondale Moore. He's one of the few receivers that they have outside of Hopkins. Hopkins will probably receive most of the attention from the defense. I like him as a value. If you're going cheap, Trey McBride is going to get a ton of snaps at tight end, played 90% of snaps without Zach Ertz. Again, if we're going to be pass heavy. And then if you want to get real cute, look at Corey Clement at $200. He was activated this week. He is a receiving running back. The way that the game scripts out, he could be in there in the 4th quarter in a blowout or even in the 3rd quarter when they're trailing. If he catches a couple passes out of the backfield at $200, it works.
Yeah, Jeff, when you're looking at this slate, there isn't that much value. Rondale Moore is $6,600 on this slate. You did mention you thought you could fade McCaffrey because Eli Mitchell has been in there. So, I mean, he's only, what is he, 5,800?
Mitchell's definitely in play. But I mean, I think that Arizona has a lot of opportunity on it to go a lot cheaper than this. Pierce mentioned Corey Clement, who I'd like. Dude, I don't know how this guy keeps staying in the league, quite frankly. But the back I would look to on Arizona is probably Keontae Ingram. He's a little bit more expensive, 2,600 in the flex. But you look at James Conner. James Conner obviously dominated the usage in the last game, but like there's a reason they cut Benjamin. It's because they have Ingram, and they drafted him. He's a more explosive runner. I think he's a more explosive runner than Connor. And I really do expect him that if this game ends up, like if they get behind by 10, you probably see Ingram getting some like hurry up work and getting some snaps out of the shotgun and taking some carries. So again, I think there's a lot of situations on the table here where Arizona, it's not even just garbage time. It's just like we're just running out the clock, and Ingram ends up with like 10 touches. He's only 2,600. That's probably where I would go. Trey McBride is definitely in play here as well. $1,000. He played 90% of the snaps after Zach Ertz went down. He only had one target, but I expect that target share to go up quite a bit here, especially with no Marquise Brown still. So, the Cardinals have been targeting the tight end position sort of all season. I think McBride's probably going to be the chalky, like cheap value, but Ingram, I think, is the guy who could really come through as kind of a low-owned, not min-price play, but very cheap play.
All right, let's move on over to the sportsbook side of this one. Jeff, a player prop that you're targeting.
Yeah, unfortunately, I wanted to look for some Rondale Moore props. We just don't have the Arizona props up. It's because obviously all this injury news, Kyler Murray's decision going to just affect everything. Let's go to something that I love to do. Let's go to the alt lines with Brandon Ayuk. I'm really impressed with Brandon Ayuk this year. You can get him to go 75 yards or more on the alternative lines here at plus 235. I like this one. Ayuk has gone over this in like 3 of his last 4 games to start anyways. He's been putting up 70, 80 yards. He's out-targeted Deebo Samuel now in 4 straight starts. He's basically put his stamp as the number 1 wide receiver. And this is impressive because last year, I don't even think Jimmy Garoppolo knew who this guy was. He was just kind of getting ignored. So Brandon Ayuk coming in here against the Cardinals defense. They've allowed the 5th most fantasy points against the opposing wide receivers over the last 4 weeks, another week secondary. Ayuk's actually gone over 80 yards in 4 straight games, so I'm going to have to even correct myself. It's even more positive than that. I think these are great odds at 75 or more. You could just take the over on his normal prop as well, but let's always just go for something big. It's a great matchup. I think Ayuk's shown that he's kind of the alpha number 1 here. They're still going to work in Deebo Samuel, but if anyone's going for like 100 yards here, it's going to be Ayuk.
All right, Pierce, a player prop that you like.
Christian McCaffrey under 66.5 rushing yards. As I mentioned earlier, there are just too many weapons on the 49ers. They have multiple running backs they can go to, multiple receivers that they can go to. They're a huge favorite. Why would you run McCaffrey into the ground in this situation? He saved his legs. He's got an injury background. And also, he's never been that great of a between the tackles type of runner. I mean, he's improved, but he's not really your guy. Eli Mitchell is your guy. He's the guy that's going to get the carries in the second half. We saw last week. First week back, no training wheels at all. Eli Mitchell was your ground and pound back. He will be again this week. McCaffrey's still going to get his rushes. He shouldn't get more than 10 and at the most 15. He's mainly going to be their dynamic back they use out of the backfield as a receiver. I would love his receiving props, but not on the ground. There's just no reason in this situation to have him running the ball too much.
All right, Pierce, favorite bet in this one?
I'll take the Cardinals and the points. Hopefully I can get a couple more points. It's just too big of a number. 4 of the last 6 when the Cardinals were underdogs, they have covered. They've covered in 4 of the last 6 against the 49ers on the road. It's risky. It's scary, but that's just a lot of points for a division game, and I hope that I can get a little bit of a backdoor cover. I know everyone thinks San Francisco is going to absolutely destroy this team. I don't know if Kyler Murray is that much of a difference. I know San Francisco is healthy, but both teams on the road. It's in Mexico City. Who knows how this thing's going to play out? But that many points, I got to take it.
All right, Jeff, what do we think?
Yeah, so I threw out a couple different things here. With the line at 10, it's like, I mean, I would definitely lean San Francisco. You just look at what they're doing in terms of like against the spread. They're 22-12 ATS as the away team. Since 2019, so with Jimmy Garoppolo and Kyle Shanahan. But the prop I liked, and I gave this out yesterday, was just take the San Francisco 49ers to win and then for the total to go over. You're getting plus 140 on the DraftKings Sportsbook. You're basically just asking us to cover the over because the 49ers are going to win this game. It's just by how much. And the line has obviously moved now to where, Pierce is right. Like we're at a key number as well at 10 there. Like I think you may see this go back under 10 and then I would be on the 49ers. But I like this one with the over and with the 49ers to win. Again, you're getting a little bit more juice because of we're throwing in the money line on the 49ers, but then 43.5. What have we seen from the Arizona Cardinals games lately? I mean, they're kind of turning into just a shootout team. Does that continue with Case Keenum? I'm kind of with the Pierce angle here where I'm not sure it's going to matter too much. I think the Cardinals still going to allow a ton of points. They'll probably get 17 or something on their own, and San Francisco may get to 30. So let's take the over and 49ers to win. Again, it was plus 140 yesterday. You can get good plus money on it regardless. So.
All right, good stuff, guys. Thank you. We got boots on the ground in Mexico with our friend Mike Golick calling the game. So Emerson sat down with him last week to talk about it. Take a look.
Let's go to the Week 11 finale here. It wraps up south of the border. We mentioned it at the top of this segment. Monday night, NFC West showdown between the 49ers and Cardinals. You're going to be on the call of this game, Mike. One of the biggest spreads of the week, too, with San Francisco rounding into shape here as a playoff contender. What kind of chance are you giving Arizona to slow down that tag team, that nasty tag team in the backfield, Christian McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell?
It's gonna be tough. Mitchell coming back from being on IR early in the season at his first game last week, averaged almost 5 yards a carry, and then with McCaffrey, I mean, what a 1-2 punch. Here's the reason, and hey, a lot of credit to the Cardinals winning last week with their backup quarterback, but also listen to some of these. I've been getting all the information to get ready for this game. They have used 76 players this year. That's the most in the NFL. On offense, they've had 34 different players see action. That's the second most in the NFL. 10 different starting lineups. That's the most in the NFL. The offensive line has had 7 different starting combinations this season, 5 in the last 6 games and 4 in the last 4 games. So they have been the mash unit. Every year there is a team like that. And the Cardinals are taking that up right now. They are an absolute mash unit going on. So it's about who they can get available, especially on that offensive line. It changes week to week. Guys are on IR, so they're going to still be out for a bit. You get Hollywood Brown back from IR, but Zach Ertz goes on IR. So you're trading 1 for 1 there. So I don't know if they're going to have enough. I see San Fran as that team that just kind of keeps building. They have the best defense in the NFL. That doesn't bode well for Arizona. And, you said the 1-2 punch in the backfield. And then, there's that guy, George Kittle, at tight end as well. It's pretty good. And Deebo Samuel. So they're just, I think, very, very tough to stop.
Welcome back to The Sweat. We've got an 8-game NBA slate coming our way this evening. So here to help us build a money-making lineup is DK Nation's Chinmay Vaidya. All right. Which guard are you going to be building your lineups around tonight, Chinmay? Lay it on us.
So Damian Lillard is unfortunately out once again with a calf strain. He's expected to be out 1 to 2 weeks, but I think the Trailblazers are going to hold him out potentially even a little bit longer to make sure he fully recovers. It was the same calf that he strained earlier in the season. So I'm going to go with Anthony Simons. He's priced at about $7,500 right now. The thing that I really like about Simons here is not just that he's going to get, time as a lead point guard, but the field goal attempts so far have been insane. He's attempting 19.1 shots per game, and that should only go up now with Lillard sidelined. And he was getting a ton of run anyway, even with Lillard on the court. So I really like Simons here as the guard to back for DFS tonight.
All right, how about a forward that you're looking at you feel like you could build your lineup around? You could pay all the way up for Giannis here.
I'm not going to pay all the way up for Giannis. I'm going to go a step down here and take Jason Tatum, the star forward for the Boston Celtics. He has been on fire so far, especially during this 9-game winning streak that the Celtics have. 30.4 points, 6.9 rebounds, and 5 assists per game. It's a high price. 10.6K is a high number, but he's been an absolute machine right now. So I'm going to back Tatum to keep things rolling tonight against the Bulls.
Could be 10 in a row for the Celtics. Best center to build around, who are you going with?
This is where you can try to save a little bit of money. I really like Clint Capella for the Hawks. He is a double-double machine. He's coming off a massive game against the Raptors where he scored close to 45 fantasy points. I think it was 44 and a half. And the Cavs are coming off a game on Sunday, and so there might be some tired legs there. It might be a little bit less effort on the glass. Even though the Cavs have 2 pretty strong big men in Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen, I like Capella to pull enough rebounds down to maintain his value here at about 6,700.
All right, how about a value play, Chinmay?
So another injury situation here. Mike Conley is expected to miss about 2 weeks with a knee injury. It's not as serious as the Jazz initially thought, but that likely means Colin Sexton gets the move here into the starting lineup. He's priced at $4,400 right now. He's averaging around 20 fantasy points per game, but that should go up here over the next few weeks as he gets more minutes and likely to get the start along with Jordan Clarkson. So I like Sexton here. He's the guy that Utah really wants to build around going forward. I'll pick him as the value play tonight.
All right. What's a player prop that you could be building your bet slip around?
So if Bam Adebayo doesn't play tonight, and the Heat had a game Sunday, so he might not on the second night of a back-to-back, Miami is really banged up. I would take the over on rebounds for either Rudy Gobert or Karl Anthony Towns. Towns is listed at 8.5. Gobert is up to 11.5. So depending on what number you really like, you can take the over there. Now, if Adebayo does play, I think the Heat actually do have a better shot, and their rebounding metrics are better than many expect. So then if Adebayo does play, I would go Trae Young over 26.5 points. The Hawks have been on and off lately, so I like Young to really have a big performance against, as the Cavs, I mentioned, on the second night of a back-to-back, might be a little bit slow to get to the point guard.
All right, Chinmay, a game bet you like to build around?
If you parlay the Timberwolves, Bucks, and Celtics on the money line, all are heavy favorites. You can get the parlay in at plus 125. So I really like that play. The Hawks are plus money against the Cavaliers. The Knicks are plus money somehow against the Thunder. And those are all three that I like at plus money that you can get for tonight's slate.
All right, thank you, Chinmay. Stick around because after this quick break, you're going to be joined by AJ Schultz and you're going to talk everything World Cup. The World Cup is officially underway, and the soccer lads are here to preview Tuesday's matches for us. DK Nation's Chinmay Vaidya and RotoWire's AJ Schultz. Fellas, England has won their match this morning 6-2. U.S. plays this afternoon against Wales. Before we start, any thoughts on Group B, Chinmay?
Well, it was fun while it lasted for everybody else, right? England dominating Iran this morning, 6-2, a late penalty for Iran to get that second goal. But England came out firing, and this is what we expected. We were all taking, England heavy goal line favorites. So this was not totally unexpected. Maybe a few more goals than what we thought was going to go down. But England were expected to win this group and win this group handily, and it's going to come down to likely USA and Wales as that second team to get out. So while it might be daunting now going up against England for the U.S. in this after this Wales game, this was not out of the ordinary.
AJ, do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the interesting thing to watch is, if this game today between the U.S. and Wales were to end in a draw, I think you're going to see very defensive postures from the U.S. and Wales when they play England, and really aggressive attacking postures when they play Iran, because it could come down to goal differential at that point. So you're going to see them try to limit England's opportunities when they play them and really try and attack this Iran team and get wins. So like Chinmay said, though, this match could determine already who advances out of this group alongside England.
All right, let's move on. Argentina is the heavy favorite against Saudi Arabia. AJ, got a bet in this one?
Yeah, I like the player parlay on the DK Sportsbook here. You can get Messi to score and Argentina to win, which really comes in at a pretty decent minus 125 here. If you want a little more payout, you could consider taking Messi to get 2 or more goals. Comes in at plus 330, but he should feature really heavily in this attack here. And I think you could also look at taking Argentina on the spread here. I would go minus 2.5 goals. Comes in at a solid plus 160.
All right, Chinmay, where can you find like some value in here?
On our DK Nation World Cup staff picks, I actually have Lautaro Martinez as winning the Golden Boot. I think he's actually going to be more heavily involved in this offense in terms of scoring than Messi, who's going to take on more of a distributor role. So I like Lautaro Martinez as an anytime goal scorer, comes in at plus 115 on DK Sportsbook. And I think that's the play here. I don't really know how many goals Argentina is going to score. And based off what England did earlier today, this could be another route. So I back Martinez to at least get one here.
All right, next up is Denmark and Tunisia. Denmark minus 250 with the draw coming in at plus 320. Any value with Tunisia or betting the draw here, Chinmay?
I don't hate the idea of taking Tunisia double chance. It comes in on the DK Sportsbook at plus 155, but there's really no way that Denmark is losing this game. I think Eriksen coming back for them is a huge momentum boost. I would actually take Denmark minus 1.5 goals at plus 170. I think that's the play here. I think the Danes really make a statement in this one.
All right, AJ, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm with Jimmy here. I think the goal is to get as much value as you can out of Denmark. I like the spread play there. I would also look just at the straight up total. Over 2.5 goals comes in at plus 135. I would expect we'll see a couple here. And then, as Jimmy said, Christian Eriksen is going to be back. You can get him on the assist prop at plus 240. I like that spot as well.
All right, closest match of the day, Mexico and Poland. All right, both plus money to win. Who's the bet here, AJ?
Well, look, Poland has Robert Lewandowski, who is one of the best strikers in the world. I think he flies under the radar because, Messi, Ronaldo, Neymar. But Lewandowski is a top world-class striker. So I think you consider targeting him to score a goal, comes in at plus 150. I like both teams to score at plus 105 in this one here. And then, a draw could happen. But if I'm going to pick a side, I'll look at the draw no bet, and I'll take Poland at minus 105 in that spot. Or you could look at the draw, which is about plus 220.
All right, Chinmay, what do you think? Mexico, Poland, both plus money. Where are you going?
So this is the match that many would think in this group would determine who advances if Argentina is going to indeed win this group. Now, Mexico has advanced to the round of 16 in 7 straight World Cups. And I don't think that's going to stop here. So I would take Mexico on the money line. I think this team always gets up for this competition. Poland has historically faded in international competitions, even with a striker like Lewandowski. I think Mexico gets the win here. I'll go with El Tri on the money line.
All right, biggest news so far, Karim Benzema is going to miss the tournament. Now, before we get to the French game, does this affect any potential thoughts about France futures, Chinmay?
I think it actually does the opposite for me. I would feel more confident about France going forward because they have time to adjust, even though you're losing, a guy who's the reigning Ballon d'Or holder, an all-time great forward who basically, carried Real Madrid to the Champions League title last season. France has a ton of depth. Giroud is an experienced striker. Griezmann is an experienced striker. They have some young options with Kingsley Coman and Ousmane Dembele. Kylian Mbappe is still around. He hasn't gone anywhere. And they have a lot of versatility in their back line and their midfield. So I'm not really feeling too bad for France in terms of their futures. Obviously, it's a very disappointing story for them. Benzema was expected to be a key player in their attack. But going forward, you get to adjust. You get to integrate these new players in. It's going to take a few games. I think there will be an adjustment period. But I do like France still as a team to make a deep run and make an attempt to defend their 2018 title.
AJ, do you feel the same way?
Yeah, I do. I mean, all these guys were at their teams up until, about a week ago. And so then they're having to come together short term to begin with anyway. It's not like a usual summer World Cup where you've had maybe some extra time to train together here. So it really, I don't think is going to have that big of an impact. Chimay listed the entire list of attacking options here for France. They have a wealth of talent. So I really don't think it'll affect their chances that much.
France now minus 380 to win this thing. Now on to France's opening game of the tournament. 380 against Australia. Like I said, do you have a bet in this one, AJ?
Well, yeah, without Benzema, we should see Olivier Giroud start in that central forward spot. At least that's what we're projecting over at the expected lineups on rotowire.com here. So I would target Giroud as the anytime goal scorer at plus 110. It's pretty decent value. If you look at kind of the four players we've outlined as in attacking spots, Kingsley Coman returns the best value at plus 275. So you could consider targeting him here as well. But a lot of these guys should have chances to score some goals.
All right, Chinmay, what do you think?
Yeah, I mentioned that there would be a little bit of an adjustment period with Benzema out, and I think it's going to play out here against Australia. Australia has historically been a good defensive side that tends to perform above their weight in these competitions. I don't hate Australia. Plus 1.5 goals comes in at plus 100. But if you really don't want to back Australia here, I think the total at under 2.5 goals coming in at plus 115 might be worth the spot here. I think France does slow down a little bit with Benzema out in this first game, as there is a little bit of an adjustment period. I would take under 2.5 total goals. If you're really liking Australia, I would take them plus 1.5 goals, but I like the under here.
All right, good stuff. Thank you, guys. More to come tomorrow on Wednesday's games, and we'll break down the U.S. game versus Wales. Stick around, though, AJ, because next you're going to be joined by Paul to break down tonight's hockey slate. The Hockey Dudes are here. RotoWire's AJ Scholes and Paul Bruno for NHL Morning Skate. Need your best DFS and Sportsbook plays for tonight's 10-game slate. You just saw those were the NHL top price DFS plays for today. I need to know who your best center is going to be, your best center for DFS play. Paul, who you rolling with?
I've got a couple of guys in mind. I like to spend up at the center position on a big slate like this on a couple of guys who are on good streaks scoring-wise. Jack Eichel has really found his top form again in Vegas. The injury woes behind him. He's averaging 3.5 shots on goal a game and collected points in 10 of his last 11 starts, while Vancouver is not doing well on the defensive side of the puck, having allowed at least 3 goals in 8 of their last 9. Similarly, Sebastian Aho of the Carolina Hurricanes leading that potent offense. They are once again atop the league in terms of shots on goal per game. He's a big part of that with 49 in his 18 games played, and he's better than a point per game player. Yet his price tag only $6,400. I'm a little surprised it's that low.
All right, AJ, who you going with for your center?
Yeah, so the Jets look like they're going to go with David Rittich tonight instead of Connor Hellebuyck. And so for me, I'm going to target the other side of that matchup and go with some Hurricanes tonight. And that starts with Sebastian Aho for me at 6,400. That's relatively discounted compared to the top of the board. Goals in back-to-back games, and I think he should make it 3 games in a row with a score tonight.
All right, take us to the wing. AJ, who is the best winger on the slate tonight?
I think another team with a good matchup here is the Ottawa Senators. I know they've struggled on their own right, but going up against the Sharks, I think, is a good opportunity to maybe utilize some of these guys. So I will go towards the top of the board here and take Brady Tkachuk at 8,100. Fact is, he's averaging over 5 shots per game over his last 7 games. So he's got a really good floor. Plenty of power play opportunities as well here. Should continue to produce.
All right, Paul, where are you going?
Toss up for me. I'll give you both names, though. Philip Forsberg of the Predators, looking like his game is in order, too, with 11 points in his last 9 starts. He's averaging over 3.5 shots on goal per game. gets a chance to fatten up those stats against one of the weakest teams in the league in Arizona in terms of their overall defensive style of play. And the price tag there only $6,500, but a better deal than that. Jonathan Huberdeau for Calgary at Philadelphia, only $4,400. Look, this guy was a 115-point scorer last year. I know he's off to a slow start, but he's picked up his shots on goal rate recently and is looking more engaged, and he's starting to put up some points too. I like his chances of a real breakout performance this evening.
All right, best defenseman, Paul. Who do you like on the blue line?
Well, there's three blue liners here that profile similarly, and I'm spending up a little more than I normally would as a result on the back end here, but still not blowing my brains out with the likes of Charlie McAvoy at Tampa. That's going to be a hotly contested game between those division rivals, but McAvoy's come back from injury, and he's hit the ice running with points in almost every game and really looking like a big part of their offense without any kind of what we'll call not a learning curve, but a rehabilitation back into the lineup. So he's back in top form, first pairing minutes, first power play unit quarterback, and the same profile applies to a couple other guys. Rasmus Anderson for Calgary at Philadelphia, $5,000 the price tag there for his big minutes. And then finally, Morgan Riley. I'll be watching him up close. I'm going to the hockey game tonight in Toronto against the Islanders. The Leafs are on a real heater, having only lost once in regulation to AJ's favorite club. But we got revenge on that one, so stop mouthing off AJ on social media, okay, buddy? But Riley, 5,200 points for a Leaf power play that's really on fire right now, and he's been a big part of that, so I like all three of these matchups for the defenseman.
Yeah, stop mouthing off, AJ, okay? But do mouth off with your best defenseman for today.
So I really like Mikhail Sergachev for the Tampa Bay Lightning. He's off to a phenomenal start to the year. And while his price tag is finally higher than that of teammate Victor Hedman, he's still just going to cost you $6,600. This is a guy that's on a 4-game point streak. It's not the best matchup going up against Boston, but they are at home, so that should hopefully help. And even against, a team like Boston that's been rolling to start the year, I think Tampa should get some power play opportunities. And Sergachev has been the guy on the number one group there.
All right, how about your best value play for this evening, AJ?
So a bit of an outlier here. Juuso Parsinen, name I had not heard before the season started. He is with the Nashville Predators, playing up on the top line for them, and has been on an absolute tear since getting called up. Like I said, relatively unknown player who's getting first line minutes here. His salary has not adjusted to that fact yet, so you can grab him at just $4,600. Really cheap value. Good matchup tonight, and I expect this youngster to keep rolling.
All right, what do we think? Where are you going, Paul, for some value?
A couple of guys that face off against one another are two of the three that I'm looking at. Stefan Noesen playing first-line minutes for Carolina at Winnipeg, only costing $3,700, playing alongside Aho. I already told you he's on fire, and AJ's alongside with that pick. So we see that line maybe having a chance to go off, and why not try and stack them a little bit there to make it a bigger payoff. And then on the other side of the ice, Blake Wheeler, second-line minutes for Winnipeg on a regular shift, but he's going to be front and center on the power play too, and that's maybe where he has his best value against a Carolina club that is pretty stingy 5-on-5. But $3,600 for a guy of his caliber, I can't ignore that. Then in another game, I'm going against the flow, picking Tyler Seguin, second liner for his Dallas Stars against Colorado. They'll be counterpunching all night long, and this guy's a guy with all kinds of skill, and yet priced at only $3,300. That's very low for a guy who has his game in order and has been piling up the points recently.
All right, take us home with your best bet on the DK Sportsbook for tonight. Paul, where are you going?
I'm all over the puck line on 3 games here, Jesse. There's compelling information that makes me lean in favor of the Leafs tonight. They're plus 145. You give up a goal and a half. As I mentioned, their only loss in the last 10 games makes me feel good about their game in order. And the Islanders, on the other hand, have been outscored 10-6 in their last 2 starts. Then I look at Nashville, only plus 105 if you get them to win by a goal and a half. They're unbeaten in their last 4 at home tonight against Arizona, who are losers of the last 3, and they've been outscored 12-4. So that should be a larger line in my favor, but I'll take it anyway. And then finally, Vegas Golden Knights plus 180 if you give up a goal and a half. They're 7-2-1 in their last 10. They're first in the Pacific Division against a Vancouver club that's giving up almost 4 goals per game this season.
All right, hit us with your bet, AJ.
I'm going to circle back to that Jets Hurricane matchup again. Can't stress enough, without Connor Hellebuyck in goal, I think this is prime for plenty of pucks to find the back of the net tonight. I like grabbing the over 6 here. You can get plus 105 value. I wouldn't be shocked to see that move a little bit. You could possibly see it drop as low as minus 120, or even see the line move to 6.5 here. So get it while it's hot.
All right, fellas, that's it. Thank you very much for breaking down the hockey slate. And that's a show, okay? That is a show, folks. Madden is starting at noon. That's part of a 3-game slate. Koff and LaMarca will be on the slate this evening at 5 p.m., and we will be back in studio tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. We'll see you then.